Hello, amazing English learners, and welcome back to the Learn and Talk English podcast YouTube channel. Um, I'm so excited you're here for another deep dive into the world of English learning.
Yeah, it's fantastic to be back.
In our last episode, we talked about how important the IELTS exam is. Like, it can truly open doors for your education, your career, and even, your dream of living in another country. So today, we're going to give you some detailed tips
Okay.
for preparing for the exam. We'll be repeating some of the vocabulary and sentence structures from the last episode
Right.
so you can reinforce your learning. After all, improving your English is always one of our goals,
Right.
right? Alongside helping you ace the IELTS.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like we always say, two birds, one stone.
Exactly. So let's not waste any time and jump right in. We know the IELTS is a big deal, but can you quickly remind us what it stands for and why it's so important?
Sure. IELTS stands for the International English Language Testing System, and it's a globally recognized test that assesses your ability to communicate in English across 4 key areas: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Universities and employers worldwide use it to gauge your English proficiency. And as you mentioned, it's also a crucial step for those who are planning to migrate to an English-speaking country.
Yeah. It's interesting how the IELTS exam isn't just about theoretical knowledge. It's designed to reflect real-life scenarios, which I think is a fantastic way to prepare for everyday communication in English.
Precisely. Yeah, think about it. In daily life, you listen to people, you read information, you write emails, and you have conversations.
Right.
The IELTS tests your ability to navigate these situations effectively in English. So preparing for the exam naturally enhances your overall communication skills.
Okay. Now, there are 2 types of IELTS exams, right?
Mhm.
Can you explain the difference between them and how someone might choose which one to take?
You are right. There's the IELTS Academic and the IELTS General Training. And choosing the right one depends entirely on your goals. So if you're aiming for higher education or professional registration in fields like medicine or engineering, the academic IELTS is for you. It focuses on the language skills needed in a university or professional setting.
So it's geared towards those who will be using English in a more academic context.
Exactly. On the other hand, if you're planning to migrate to an English-speaking country or are looking for work experience or training programs,
Okay.
the General Training IELTS is more appropriate. It tests your English proficiency in a more practical, everyday context.
So if someone is just starting to think about taking the IELTS, figuring out their goals first is a good place to start.
Absolutely. It's like planning a trip. You need to know your destination before you can map out the route.
I love that analogy.
Wow.
Okay, now let's dive into some tips for the different sections, starting with listening. What's the format like?
Okay.
And what advice can you give our listeners to help them score high?
So the listening section is 30 minutes long and includes a variety of audio recordings, anything from casual conversations to lectures and discussions. You'll need to listen carefully and answer a series of questions based on what you hear. The challenge lies not only in understanding different accents and speaking styles,
Right.
but also in picking out specific details and implied meanings.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot to process in just 30 minutes. What are some strategies that our listeners can use to sharpen their listening skills
Okay.
and avoid feeling overwhelmed?
Well, one of the most effective strategies is to engage in active listening.
Okay.
Instead of passively hearing sounds, make a conscious effort to understand the message being conveyed. This involves paying attention to the main ideas, specific details, the speaker's tone of voice, and even what's implied but not directly stated.
So it's not just about catching every word, but about really understanding the nuances of the conversation.
Exactly. And this skill translates beautifully to real-life situations. Imagine you're attending a meeting or having a conversation with a native English speaker.
Right.
Active listening allows you to follow along,
Yeah.
ask relevant questions, and engage more meaningfully. It's a game changer for communication.
Yeah, I love how we're connecting these IELTS tips back to real-world scenarios. It makes the preparation process feel so much more relevant and valuable.
Absolutely. And speaking of valuable strategies, another tip for the listening section is to use the questions to your advantage.
Okay.
Before each recording starts, take a moment to read through the questions
Right.
and predict what kind of information you'll need to listen for.
Okay.
Are they asking about dates, locations, opinions, or reasons? This will help you focus your attention on the most crucial parts of the recording.
That's a fantastic point. I often find myself getting lost in the details when I listen to something new. Having those questions in mind beforehand would definitely help me stay on track
Yeah,
and filter the information more effectively.
precisely. It's like having a mental map before you venture into a new territory.
Okay.
And speaking of navigating new territories,
Yes.
let's move on to the reading section. This one can be quite a hurdle for many test takers.
Yeah, it's definitely a section that requires focus and strategy. You have 60 minutes to read 3 long passages and answer a series of questions. Time management is crucial here, especially when those passages are packed with complex vocabulary and intricate ideas.
Hmm.
Where do we even begin to tackle this beast?
You're right, the reading section can be a real challenge.
Hmm.
But don't worry, there are proven techniques to make it manageable. Remember those skills we talked about,
Yeah.
skimming and scanning?
Yeah.
They're your secret weapons for conquering the reading section.
Skimming and scanning, those sound familiar, but can you remind us what they are and how to use them effectively?
Of course, skimming involves quickly glancing through the text to get the gist of it,
Okay.
the main ideas and the overall flow of information. It's like reading a news article headline
Hmm.
to understand the general topic before diving into the details. On the other hand, scanning is about searching for specific information like dates, names, or keywords.
Mm.
It's what you do when you're looking for a particular recipe in a cookbook. You don't read every recipe, you scan for the one you want.
So instead of getting bogged down in every sentence, we use skimming to understand the big picture
Yeah.
and scanning to find the specific details needed to answer the questions. That makes a lot of sense, especially when we're working against the clock.
Exactly. And mastering these techniques not only helps you ace the reading section, but also improves your overall reading comprehension in real-life situations.
Wait.
Think about all the information you encounter daily, emails, articles, reports. Skimming and scanning help you navigate this information overload more efficiently and extract the key points.
It's like having a superpower for information processing.
Mhm.
And while we're on the topic of processing information, I can't help but think about vocabulary.
Right.
The reading section is a goldmine for expanding your vocabulary, isn't
It
it?
absolutely is. And don't just let those new words pass you by. Make a conscious effort to note them down, look up their meanings, and try to use them in your own speaking and writing.
Okay.
It's like adding tools to your language toolbox. The more words you have at your disposal, the more effectively you can express yourself.
It's like building a mental library of words.
Mm.
And speaking of libraries, the writing section of the IELTS is where you get to showcase your ability to construct well-organized and grammatically sound pieces of writing.
Precisely. And just like with the other sections, the writing section reflects real-world writing tasks. Think about the emails you write,
Okay.
the reports you submit, or even the blog posts you might create. The skills you develop for the IELTS writing section can be directly applied to these situations,
Okay.
making you a more effective communicator in both personal and professional contexts.
So whether you're writing an academic essay or a casual email to a friend, the principles of clear communication remain the same.
Exactly. Now tell me, what do you think is the biggest challenge people face when it comes to the writing section?
Well, from what I've heard, many people struggle with organizing their thoughts and structuring their writing in a way that is clear, coherent, and engaging. It's one thing to have great ideas,
Yeah.
but it's another thing entirely to translate those ideas into a well-written piece that flows smoothly and captivates the reader.
You've hit the nail on the head. And the key to overcoming this challenge lies in understanding the underlying structure and expectations for each writing task. Remember, both Task 1 and Task 2 require you to present your ideas in a clear and organized manner.
Right.
So planning is crucial.
Okay.
Before you even start writing, take a few moments to brainstorm your ideas, outline your key points, and determine the best way to structure your response.
Yeah.
Think of it like building a house.
Okay.
You need a solid blueprint before you start laying bricks.
I love that analogy.
Oh.
It makes the writing process feel less daunting and more like a manageable construction project.
Exactly. And speaking of construction, let's talk about sentences. Remember, it's not about writing the longest or most complex sentences to impress the examiner. It's about communicating your ideas clearly and effectively. Prioritize grammatical accuracy and clarity over trying to sound overly sophisticated.
So it's about quality over quantity when it comes to sentences. We want our writing to be like a well-designed machine where every part works together smoothly and efficiently.
Precisely. And to ensure that smooth flow,
Yeah.
Pay attention to the use of linking words and phrases.
Okay.
These are like the connectors that hold your ideas together and guide the reader through your arguments.
Right.
Words like however, in addition, therefore, and on the other hand, help to create a sense of cohesion and logical progression in your writing. Without them, your writing can feel choppy and disjointed.
Yeah. It's like adding those smooth transitions between scenes in a movie. They make the whole experience more enjoyable and easier to follow. And speaking of smooth transitions, let's move on to the final and often the most nerve-wracking section of the IELTS. Speaking. Many people dread the idea of a face-to-face interview with an examiner.
It's understandable to feel nervous about the speaking section.
Right.
It's putting yourself out there, showcasing your spoken English skills in a formal setting. But remember, the examiner is there to help you demonstrate your abilities, not to intimidate you.
Okay.
They want you to succeed.
That's reassuring to hear. It's easy to forget that the examiner is on our side, rooting for us to do well.
Absolutely. So try to approach the speaking section as a conversation rather than an interrogation. Relax, take a deep breath, and focus on communicating your ideas clearly and confidently.
Speaking of confidence, how can our listeners prepare for this speaking section in a way that builds their confidence and helps them feel more at ease during the interview?
The most effective way to build confidence in speaking is, you guessed it, practice. Find a language partner, a friend, or a tutor, and practice answering typical IELTS speaking questions.
Yeah.
Even better, record yourself and listen back to identify areas where you can improve. The more you practice, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
It's like anything else in life. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah.
And having those recordings to listen back to can be incredibly valuable for self-assessment and improvement.
Exactly. Now, remember, the speaking section assesses not only your fluency and grammatical accuracy, but also your ability to expand on your answers and provide relevant examples.
Okay.
Instead of giving short, one-word answers, try to elaborate on your points, giving reasons, examples, and even personal anecdotes to illustrate your ideas.
So storytelling can be helpful even in an exam setting. It's about bringing those language skills to life.
Yeah.
And engaging the examiner in a genuine conversation.
Precisely. And speaking of engagement, remember the importance of nonverbal communication. Maintain eye contact with the examiner, sit up straight, and use natural hand gestures. This will not only project confidence, but also help you feel more at ease.
Yeah. It's amazing how much our body language can influence how we feel and how others perceive us. And speaking of perceptions, I think it's time to address a common concern that many IELTS test takers have dealing with those pre-exam jitters. Any advice for our listeners who might be feeling overwhelmed or anxious about the exam?
Pre-exam nerves are completely normal. It's a natural response to a high-stakes situation.
Right.
But remember, the IELTS is just one step on your language learning journey. Don't let it define your success or your worth. Focus on the progress you've made, trust in your preparation, and try to approach the exam with a positive attitude.
That's such a powerful reminder. It's so easy to get caught up in the pressure of the exam and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Exactly. And to help manage those nerves, try some relaxation techniques.
Okay.
Deep breathing exercises, visualization, and positive self-talk can work wonders.
Great.
Remember, you've got this.
That's such encouraging advice. It's all about shifting our mindset from fear to confidence.
Absolutely. And with that positive note, I think it's time to wrap up this part of our IELTS deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground, from understanding the different types of exams to exploring specific strategies for each section.
Right.
But hold on tight, because in our next segment, we'll be delving deeper into some test-taking secrets and sharing some insider tips to help you maximize your IELTS score. Stay tuned.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Yeah, see you next time.
See you soon.
Welcome back to our IELTS deep dive. Ready for some more strategic insights to boost your score?
Absolutely. We've laid the groundwork. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of test-taking tactics.
Perfect. Let's revisit the listening section. Remember those short breaks you get between recordings?
Yeah.
Don't underestimate their importance.
I'll admit, sometimes I just space out during those breaks.
Yeah.
What should we be doing instead?
There are many opportunities. First, quickly double-check your answers from the previous recording.
Okay.
Make sure they're on the answer sheet correctly. You'd be surprised how many points are lost as simple errors.
Oh, I've totally been there.
Yeah.
Easy to make a mistake when you're under pressure.
Exactly. Once you're confident in those answers, shift gears. Read the questions for the next recording, underlining keywords. It primes your brain to listen for exactly what's needed.
It's like setting up a mental filter. So you don't get overwhelmed by the whole recording.
Spot on. Now let's move on to reading. I've got a technique that might feel counterintuitive at first.
Ooh, I love counterintuitive tips. Lay it on me.
Read the questions before diving into the passage. I know it seems backwards, but hear me out.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Why would we read the questions first?
It turns your reading into a targeted mission.
Okay.
Instead of passively absorbing everything, you're actively searching for specific answers.
Right.
It saves time and improves accuracy.
So instead of reading the entire passage, then hunting for answers,
Right.
I'm already primed to find them as I go.
Exactly. You become a detective searching for clues. Speaking of crafting a good response, let's talk about the writing section.
Yes. The section where many test takers feel the pressure to sound super academic and complex.
I understand that feeling. But remember, clarity trumps complexity.
Okay.
Using a variety of sentence structures, however, can make your writing more engaging and show off your grammatical range.
So instead of sticking to simple sentences all the time,
Right.
I should mix it up with compound and complex ones.
Precisely. Just like adding different spices to a dish.
Right.
Too much of one thing gets bland.
Makes sense. It's about finding that balance between being clear and showing off a bit of style.
Absolutely. And don't forget about the word count.
Yeah.
It's a balancing act. Provide enough detail to answer the prompt fully, but avoid going overboard.
Right. We don't want to write a novel, but we also don't want to be too brief.
Yeah.
Quality over quantity, like we talked about before.
Exactly. Now let's shift gears to the speaking section, which often brings up a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, I think it's the live performance aspect that gets to people.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for calming those pre-speaking jitters?
Nerves are normal.
Right.
But remember, the examiner wants you to do well. They're not trying to trick you.
Okay.
See it as a conversation, not an interrogation.
That's a good point. Sometimes it feels like we're up against the examiner, but they're actually there to help us showcase our skills.
Precisely. Your body language can also make a big difference.
Yeah.
Eye contact, good posture, natural gestures, all project confidence.
Yeah.
Which can actually help you feel more confident.
It's amazing how much our physicality can impact our mental state.
It's all interconnected. Now, one of the best ways to combat nerves is simply being well prepared.
Okay.
Practice speaking about diverse topics. Don't limit yourself to what you think might come up.
So step outside that comfort zone and get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Exactly. And if you make a mistake during the speaking test, don't panic. Correct yourself and move on.
Right.
Everyone makes mistakes. The examiner cares more about your overall fluency.
It's like that saying, don't let perfection be the enemy of good.
Yeah.
Better to keep going than to get stuck on a small error.
Wise words. Now, before we wrap up this section, let's tackle a question we get asked a lot.
Oh.
How can I expand my vocabulary quickly for the IELTS?
Yes. The eternal quest for a larger vocabulary. Any magical shortcuts you can share?
While there's no magic spell,
Okay.
there are smart strategies. Think of it like building a muscle. Consistency and the right exercises are key.
I like that analogy. So what kind of vocabulary workout should we be doing?
First, make friends with a vocabulary notebook.
Okay.
Jot down new words, their definitions, example sentences, even doodle a little picture to help you remember.
It's like creating your own personalized dictionary.
Exactly. And flashcards are your trusty workout buddies. Word on one side, definition on the other. Quiz yourself regularly. Repetition is key for memory.
Flashcards are classic for a reason. Portable, versatile,
Yeah.
and they really force you to recall the information.
They are, but don't just memorize lists in isolation.
Right.
Try to see new words in action by reading articles, watching movies, listening to podcasts. The more context, the better you'll understand their nuances.
So it's not just about knowing the definition, but understanding how to actually use the word in different situations.
Precisely. Make it fun, too. Don't force yourself to study dry lists.
Okay.
Word games, engaging articles, even song lyrics can be great learning tools.
It's all about finding those enjoyable ways to make language learning a part of our daily lives.
Absolutely. Now, we've covered a lot of ground, but remember, prepping for the IELTS is part of a bigger picture.
Right.
Boosting your overall English fluency.
It's a journey, not just a destination.
Exactly. Embrace the process.
Yeah.
Celebrate your progress.
Like
and
Brad.
don't get discouraged by setbacks. Remember, the IELTS is just one milestone along your path to becoming a confident English speaker.
Welcome back to the Learn and Talk English Podcast YouTube channel for the final part of our IELTS deep dive. We've explored the exam format, tackled section-specific strategies, and even busted some vocabulary myths. Now let's equip you with resources to continue your IELTS journey and answer some common questions that pop up.
Exactly. We want you to feel confident and prepared, like you've got all the tools you need to succeed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So where can our listeners find reliable and helpful resources to practice and refine their skills?
Well, the official IELTS website is a goldmine. You'll find sample test questions, practice materials,
Okay.
and even advice from examiners themselves. It's your one-stop shop for all things IELTS.
It's like having a direct line to the IELTS headquarters. What other resources would you recommend?
The British Council website is another fantastic resource,
Right.
offering a range of free online materials like
Okay.
practice tests, videos, and articles. And don't overlook the Cambridge English website. They have a treasure trove of IELTS-specific resources,
Oh, wow.
including books, online courses, and even mobile apps.
It's incredible how many resources are available at our fingertips these days. Speaking of resources, many of our listeners are curious about how many practice tests they should take. Is there a magic number?
While practice is essential, it's not about blindly taking test after test.
Right.
Focus on quality over quantity. After each practice test, analyze your performance.
Okay.
Really dig into why you got certain questions wrong
Yeah.
and identify patterns in your strengths and weaknesses.
Okay.
Then target your study efforts accordingly.
So it's like having a coach who helps you review your game footage and create a personalized training plan.
Precisely. Now let's address the elephant in the room test anxiety. Any tips for our listeners who might be feeling the pressure?
Oh, I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
Those pre-exam jitters can be intense.
Absolutely. First and foremost, remember to breathe. Deep breathing can calm your nerves and bring you back to the present moment.
Oh,
And don't underestimate the power of visualization.
right.
Imagine yourself walking into the exam room with confidence, answering questions with ease, and achieving your desired score.
It's like creating a mental movie of success, training your mind to believe it's possible.
Exactly. And speaking of training, what about those last-minute study tips? Any advice for maximizing those final hours before the exam?
Yeah, that's a question we get a lot. What should we be focusing on in those crucial moments before the big day?
Resist the urge to cram.
Okay.
Instead, review what you already know.
Right.
Go over your vocabulary flashcards, skim through your notes, and perhaps listen to a podcast or two to keep your ears tuned into English.
So it's more about reinforcing those existing neural pathways than trying to create new ones at the last minute.
Precisely. And most importantly, prioritize a good night's sleep before the exam.
Yeah,
A well-rested mind is a sharp mind.
couldn't agree more.
Uh-huh.
Sleep is like hitting the reset button for your brain. And as we wrap up our IELTS deep dive, I want to remind everyone that learning English goes beyond the exam itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's about embracing a new language, a new culture, and opening up a world of possibilities.
It's about connecting with people from all walks of life,
Yeah.
exploring different perspectives,
Yeah.
and enriching your own understanding of the world.
It's about becoming a global citizen and embracing the beauty of diversity.
Beautifully said. So keep learning, keep practicing, and most importantly, enjoy the journey.
And remember, we're here to support you every step of the way. Subscribe to the Learn and Talk English Podcast YouTube channel for more tips, strategies, and inspiration on your English learning adventure. Until next time, happy learning.